Hey everyone, Tactics here, and just last night we received the final patch notes and release date for patch 9.0.5, which is actually coming out this coming Tuesday, March the 9th. So much sooner, a week or two sooner than anyone really expected it. Now, this is going to make a lot of people happy, but also some people are going to be unhappy, as we'll cover in this video. Mostly stuff that we haven't already looked at in my PTR notes videos, so things like the Monk and Hunter bug fixes that lead to significant nerfs, some additional Prot War Buffs, and as well as the fully fleshed out Valor system, which we haven't already talked about. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe for more content like it, and let's hop into it. So, starting off, there's the adventure changes. Not going to cover this, but if that's your thing, a lot of buffs mostly to adventurers to make that a little bit easier. We also have all of these Covenant ability buffs that we've already covered, the Vengeance Slight nerfs, the Resto Druid Slight buffs. We've all talked about that stuff. So just moving down to the Windwalker, there they are. So the main thing we want to look at here are these bottom two. So fix an issue that allowed Storm, Earth, and Fire spirits to continue channeling Fists of Fury after the Monk's Fists of Fury channel ended, and fix an issue that could cause Spinning Crane Kick's damage to not be properly increased by Mark of the Crane if targets die with the Monk's mark active. So the combination of these two bug fixes, one, not only led to a bunch of additional bugs that they tried to fix, but I don't believe they fixed all of, it leads to a significant damage decrease for Windwalker monks. So basically, if you're unfamiliar, what they used to do in Kyrian Windwalker monks, in their Weapons of Order window, they would be canceling their Fists of Fury because their clones would continue channeling Fists of Fury even if the monk wasn't, and then they would also do other abilities. Now you're saying, well, this is a bug, they have to fix it. This has been in the game since Warlords of Draenor. At what point does a bug become a feature? Right? But also, I mean, Storm, Earth, and Fire is a buggy mess, and frankly, at this point, I feel like it should just be deleted and replaced with something. I'm sure no monks would be unhappy if Whirling Dragon Punch became baseline and Storm, Earth, and Fire just kind of disappeared. But that's just my 2 cents. But yeah, it's something that's been in the game a long time, and it's being changed now, and that results in a significant DPS loss for Windwalkers. Combined with this issue here, I believe what was previously happening is that when they would tag a mob with Mark of the Crane and it died, they would have that Mark of the Crane stack for the rest of the combat. And so they would be able to keep up additional Mark of the Crane stacks. They wouldn't even have to upkeep them, right? The mob would be dead with Mark of the Crane, and that would count as a Mark of the Crane for them. It's, I believe, what was happening. So this works out to be, I believe, a 5 to 6% DPS loss in single target. And it just gets higher and higher as you add targets because of the Mark of the Crane stuff. So if you look at Warcraft logs, this is just Mythic Hungering, so single target fight, 75th percentile. Monks are already kind of middle of the pack. And even if you just take away 5% DPS there, I believe that drops them down a significant margin. So near the bottom. Yeah, it'll drop them down near the bottom from middle of the pack, which is definitely not good for them. Moving on, we've already talked about the Paladin changes. The Spiritual changes again, pretty significant. It's not going to change too much. Spiritual's pretty good talent in raids, but definitely needed the nerf. The other thing with Priests, Fey Guardians, the cooldown reduction was dialed back to what it is on live, so 100%, but they did increase the DR, so it's now a 20% DR instead of 10%, which is nice for actually both healer priest specs, but especially Holy, who is lacking that damage reduction. That's just a nice little boost to have there. Moving on, we got some additional Shaman buffs, particularly Ellie Shaman. We already saw these other buffs here, and the 1 nerf to Lava Burst, which kind of makes their single target net neutral. But they also got an additional Chain Lightning buff, so they got some AoE buffs there. On top of this, there's the Conqueror's Banner redesign, which we talked about, has some pretty big implications for Prot Warriors, as well as the Fleshcraft redesign, which did get a slight nerf. It's now only a 20% DR from a 30% DR, but honestly, this is still a much better ability, and it'll make Volatile Solvent from Merilith and Resourceful Fleshcrafting from Bonesmith much more impactful in Mythic Plus. You'll be able to get pretty much constant buffs, is my understanding now, with this new Volatile Solvent, so much higher uptime on those buffs, which is really nice. From there, some dungeon and raid tuning stuff. So, the Halls of Atonement and Sanguine Depths bonuses have been slightly reworked. The Loyal Stoneborn is now a 45-second buff instead of a 30-second buff, but its damage was halved. So this is a net damage nerf, but you do get the 10% DR for an additional 15 seconds. But really, it's a bit of a nerf, of course, the damage-wise, because you saw some of the strats where they were using those guys and just PIing them, and they were absolutely melting. So this makes PI a little less valuable on them because of their big damage reduction. Not 100% sure if this means you now PI a player instead of these guys. Previously, it was no question you would always PI these guys if you had a PI, and they would just absolutely pump. But we'll see what happens there. Next, we have the Anima Cages in Sanguine Depths. They now last for 1 minute when you activate them instead of 45 seconds, so you have a little bit more time to kill those mobs in the area and get your buff. And the buff now lasts 75 seconds instead of 60 seconds. And also, one of the Anima Cages was moved away from the Patrolling Chamber Sentinel. So, basically what this means is that you were already able to kind of stack these up and refresh the buff. That was the thing. If you got a big stack and then you were able to get to the next Anima Cage before that expired, so 60 seconds is pretty tight, and then you were able to refresh your buff, so you would be able to get a super extended duration and higher stacked buff. That was really, really good and something that people were doing on higher keys. Lower keys, I mean, this buff wasn't too great because people didn't really use the cages very well, but adding an extra 15 seconds of this buff gives you a lot more opportunities to actually refresh this buff. So that's going to be interesting to see, and we'll see how that plays out, at least for higher keys. I assume on lower keys this is still just going to be not used very well. But it is what it is. Now, the Mythic Keystone dungeon formula change. A lot of people not happy with that, me included. So basically what happened in this season is that they changed the Keystone to be one lower than your highest you've ever completed in the season. It was a great change, honestly. I really like that change. It meant you could actually take weeks that you hated off, right? If terrible affixes, there's no way you're pushing. You could just do a bunch of 15s that week for the higher level players, of course, and then just not worry, and you'll still get a big key in your next weekly chest. However, now, if you don't do that, your keys will rot by a key level every week. So decrease by 1 per week until you complete another higher level Keystone. This is kind of important because we're coming to 3 weeks back to back here where they're not really great weeks to push keys, and now pretty much you're going to be forced to push a key up a couple times in order to get the same level Keystone. It's a quality of life change that is negative. That's my big thing, is like, this was a great quality of life change they put in, and now they've gone back and made it a net negative. So I'm not 100% sure why this is going through. No one for sure asked for this. This was a good change for everyone, and now it's just kind of a pain for everyone. So there's that. Of course, Necrotic, Gargans, and Brute Assassins, we talked about that, no longer there, so that's nice. And then we have the full Valor system. So initially, you're going to have a cap of, I believe, 5,000. But there will be a maximum of 1,500 you can hold at any one time. Yeah, so 5,000 is the cap in the first week, and then it increases by 750 each week. So it's going to work similar to the Conquest cap, where they stack on top of each other. But this here means you can only hold 1,500 at a time. Also note that gear before this patch can't be upgraded, and that includes Great Vault gear that you get on this coming Tuesday. Great Vault gear that you get on Tuesday will be considered pre 9.0.5 loot, and you will not be able to upgrade them, just so you know. Here are the item levels. So all 5s is 207, all 10s is 213, and all 15s is 220. So you're going to be seeing a lot of people trying to farm out that those specific gear drops. Of course, the other side is going to be a popular key on Tuesday for tanks and DPS, for those cubes and scales. So if you have the other side key next week, you're in luck. But otherwise, yeah, this is, I like this change here, the cap that increases. Not sure I'm a fan of the actual hold cap, because if you're just spamming dungeons, there's a chance, of course, that If you're only looking for one specific piece, for example, me, I'm only going to be looking for a scale. That's the only thing I need that would be worth getting to 220 eye level for me. And there's a chance that I get to 1500 Valor just spamming the other sides and not getting a scale, right? So we'll see. I'm not a fan of the cap, but I like this change, and I'm not going to complain about it too much. It's going to be a bigger issue in 9.1 when everyone needs stuff, but we'll see how that plays out then. There's also the loot change, which I believe we talked about, where if you complete a dungeon not in time, there will be a second drop, which is going to be one item level set lower. Probably trying to target the lever problem there, which is rampant right now in Mythic Plus, and of course the potencies in Castle Nathria. Now the only other thing I did want to touch on was Prot Warrior, who did see some more buffs. Actually, I believe it was up there, but they saw a 10% flat damage increase across the board, as well as a 10% additional damage increase with Thunderclap, which is nice. And then Reprisal, which was the reworked legendary, did see a small nerf. It's now only 4 seconds of shield block instead of 6, with Revenge and 20 Rage, but that's still a very, very powerful effect if you're able to charge / intervene on cooldown, giving them a significantly higher shield block uptime. So this is a pretty big boost to Prot Warriors. And then the Seismic Reverberation, which they were dealing a bunch of damage with on beta, and then was subsequently nerfed, is now up to 75% damage again. So that's going to be a pretty big damage increase. And it'd be interesting to see Prot Warriors with 2 legendaries with both Seismic Reverberation and Reprisal in Mythic Plus. From there's actually the Hunter changes. I think I glossed over those. Where are they? Hunter. There they are. Okay. So, big change here. Serpent Stalker's Trickery no longer triggers Wild Spirits twice. A lot of people are saying, oh, this is just a bug fix, don't complain. This is not a bug fix. Blizzard acknowledged this change, this ability did this. They acknowledged it. They said it was intended, and now they're walking it back. And it's a nerf, right? It is a nerf. If you're not compensating for a bug fix that you know is going to reduce classes' damage, it's a nerf. That's what happened with monks, and that's also kind of what's happening with marksmanship, except it's just not a bug fix, right? It doesn't say here fix an issue. It's just no longer. So they're nerfing this interaction, which is, I believe it's around a 3% DPS loss in single target, but as much as like an 8% DPS loss in AoE. So it's a pretty big nerf to hunters here. It's not small. And then on top of this, they almost had a compensating buff with Eagle Talon's True Focus. This was up to 50% and 5 seconds. Which I believe was still going to be like a net loss for them to switch to this and use it like a 1 to 2% DPS loss. But now they nerfed that as well. And so this is just a clear nerf to marksmanship. And I mean, yeah, it's just, I don't really understand why. Because we can look at the logs again. Marksmanship is in the top 5. A 3% nerf drops them down a little bit here. But still, I mean, you've got other classes that are. I mean, marksmanship doesn't really bring too much in terms of utility, right? They're extremely squishy. Hunters are extremely squishy. Yes, they have turtle, but they're also like, when you're talking about damage intake, that's like non-physical, right? Physical, obviously, you're gonna have the healer priest that just get chunked. But when you're talking about just general damage, I mean, hunters are the ones you're always scared of dying because they have like little to no defensives outside of turtle. And it's just odd to me that this would go through, or that this is their choice after it. It's not a bug fix, right? This is just a nerf, and I'm not 100% sure why hunters and monks are getting the nerfs as opposed to some of the other specs that are clearly outliers and above the rest. But I guess maybe we'll see some compensation in 9.1, but who knows? That does wrap up this video, though. All the major changes that have happened in 9.0.5 coming this Tuesday that we haven't already covered. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe for more content like it. It really does help. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.